everything that is happening to us is because of how we have built over time. We're building risk over time. It's a social construct. When we build, where we build, how we build, if we maintain, if we don't maintain. Even if we didn't have climate change, we would still have hurricanes, we would still have tropical storms, we would still have dry periods, because if you go back in history, they've occurred. What we've struggled with is reducing the impact that it has on our society. And that has to be a journey that continues year round. It has to be part of our development plans. It has to be a part of our development forecasting when we look at our future, our community scape, or urban scape, that we are looking to ensure that we're minimizing these points of failure. And that's why we have the day, just to remind us that it's not about when the hurricane season comes or goes or when an earthquake happens. It's an endeavor that is part of our development process.
Yeah, but to what extent do you think the message is getting across to Jamaica and other Caribbean countries? Prioritize some of the countries that are in greater need, who are probably not enough to mitigate when these natural disasters do come?
Well, the first thing, Chris, is that we need to remove this word from how we reflect on these things. It's natural disaster. It's because there's no such thing. There's no such thing as a natural disaster. And again, this is one of the reasons why we have to have these types of conversations, and my commendations to the Gleaner for this, because the term natural disaster provides an escape route for all of us. The escape route is that this is happening to us because it's an act of nature. We can't do anything. We're powerless against this, right? And it's not true. It is not true. So back to there are what we call natural hazards, man-made hazards, man-induced hazards, biological hazards like COVID. Good. But a disaster, and this is very important, and I want you to bear me out. A disaster is the consequence of the interplay between the hazard, the exposure is exposure of our assets and our people, or vulnerability. This is our capacity. So if we see it as an equation, good, and we seek to reduce risk by reducing exposure of assets, and this is where you look at your construction design, your maintenance of your infrastructure hardening, your social protection capabilities. So you're reducing exposure, you're reducing vulnerability. So less people, right, are in poverty. More people have access to social protection mechanisms. Good. And then you're also increasing capacity. You are reducing the risk of the interface between development and the hazard, outstripping your capability to cope with it. And that's when it becomes a disaster. When your capacity to deal with the event is outstripped. Good. So it's not a natural disaster. Everything that is happening to us is because of how we have built over time. We're building risk over time. It's a social construct. When we build, where we build, how we build, if we maintain, if we don't maintain, if people are not connected to economic opportunities, we're building vulnerabilities, we're building risk. So when the natural event comes, because it's natural, it will come.
Natural event.
Yes, natural hazard event. A disaster happens when it's a time continuum, you see?
Yeah.
So you have the emergency. If the emergency is not controlled and put back in its box, then it escalates to a disaster.